It's a great day here at Sage Talks. I'm your host, Sage, and this will be your first real episode, and that I'll have. And details will be in the description, in the show notes. But today I'm having a conversation with Saucy Plays. Hey, Saucy, how you doing?
Doing well, Sage.
Doing well. I just wanted to start this off by having a get to know you. And since this is the first time I'm having any episode, I can maybe give you some details about myself at like during this or after, right? But why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself? What's your first name?
Sure. My name is Josh. I'm known throughout the community as Saucy.
Mhm.
Actually a content creator for YouTube and avid tournament goer for One Piece.
Great. Where can people like find your content? Where would they go?
Um,
Plug
I'm a
away.
new channel. Just literally started making content in like the last month or so.
Mhm.
But my channel name is Saucy Play.
Mhm.
SAUCYPLAY, and that's on YouTube. And then on Instagram, I just started one called Saucy Pirates.
Oh, okay. On Instagram, Saucy Pirates. No, why the name Saucy? Where does
Uh,
that come from?
that is a wild story, to be
Go
honest. That
ahead.
actually is derived from my like a longer username called Saucy Skills with like a
Mm-hmm.
Z. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a name I literally came up like trying to come up with a Neopets account name when I was like in third grade, and I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what, saucy and like plays with
Mm-hmm.
a Z. That sounds badass.
Oh,
So
okay.
from then on out, saucy
Yeah.
skills was like, or saucy skills, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was the name that pretty much came until
Yeah.
today, and then I just shortened it to like
Yeah.
saucy.
Wait, how old are you? Can I ask that?
Yeah, of course. Do you have a guess? Like, do
I
you
have
want
a
to guess?
guess. Listen, I'm 28. People always guess way young because I look very young. I'm gonna guess
Yeah.
you're probably something similar, 29, 28.
Oh, you're so nice. I'm
Okay.
actually 34.
34. Okay.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Well, I have
But
a lot of guys in my locals that are like around that age, and they look like,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
dude, I've freaking played card games since I was like 12 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that I played with when I was 12 are still playing it today. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no shame at all in playing card games. There's like
Yeah.
people older than me actually. So,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun, and it's a good hobby to have, and like getting into it early like One Piece. Like I took a break from card games for I want to say like 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing like the app for Yu-Gi-Oh, like Master Duel, come up on my
Mm-hmm.
feed, and I was like, "Oh, I'll try that out." I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and then from there, like I hopped into playing Yu-Gi-Oh, the card game, for a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
Tier Limits format was like so like toxic, so I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
need to find a new game. And I saw One Piece. I'm like, yo,
Oh.
this game
What
is interesting, you know?
when did you find One Piece? Like when was that?
You know what? I just saw like a poster at
Mm-hmm.
a card shop like
Mm-hmm.
back in it was like back in August,
August.
right?
Okay. So back when they had
Of last year.
pre-release. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my girlfriend loves One Piece, and I'm like, okay, this is the plan to get her on board. I'm gonna
Okay.
get her into card games, it's gonna be fun. So like I brought it up. She's like, "Oh, I'm down." And then like so we started playing actually when the game came out in December, like the full
December
release.
2nd. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there, like, dude, this game just like took off, like took me to a whole nother dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've just been like so obsessed with this game, and I'm like really crazy about playing it.
Yeah.
And like, even though
Likewise.
I actually play the game more now, more than her, so it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. I
That's
don't
cool.
know.
That's a kind of a funny
Yeah.
thing. You saw a poster somewhere. They had the One Piece card game. Did you do any of the pre-release stuff, the super pre-release when it was only trial
No,
decks?
so that's one of the big things I regretted actually when I found out later
Yeah.
is
I
missing the super
I
pre-release.
did it and I regret not doing it more. Like
I
for
know,
two
right?
reasons.
Like
For two reasons. Because it's
everybody.
cool and it's a great financial decision, right? So it's
Seriously,
that's because it's actually
seriously.
an insane amount of money. I'll tell you about that later with my brother.
I bet. No, I was kind of sad I missed out on that because like all the prices on those are like skyrocketing. And also, I think like wasn't there like a huge tournament around that also where they like released the first ever like Luffy card.
Yeah, it's that winter Luffy, and I could tell you all about that because I guess you didn't know a ton about that, right? Not a lot of people do, right? And to tell
Yeah.
anybody watching this back, essentially the card came out in December 2nd, 2022. By the way, that's my birthday, just so you know.
Oh
So
wow.
December 2nd of 2022 is essentially when the card game came out, but back in August, that in September they had super pre-release trial decks, right? And you can go there to the store, and it was pretty competitive to get in, but depending on your store, it just depended on a lot of things and the relationship with Bondi at the time, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of stores limited how many you can buy. I live in Utah, so you live in
Okay.
California, right? Like where in
Oh
California?
yeah. I live in LA.
You live in
Like
now.
we're so spoiled out here. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many shops everywhere.
Yeah, so you
Like,
guys have lots of things to look at, but the thing is, there's so many people that
mhm.
they just go to every store, right? They just hop
Yeah.
around. It's not like an unknown thing. But here, there's like a handful of stores. I even say this is really good for having 3 or 4 stores, and you go 3 or 4 times a week. You can go somewhere and play One
Awesome. So
Piece.
it's good to hear that you guys have a pretty healthy scene out there in Utah.
Yeah, and
That's dope.
a small thing too. I made a Discord for One Piece Utah. There's like 120 people there. It's a pretty good community, right? So,
Yeah.
and when I
120,
did
that's
that,
pretty
I
good.
didn't think it would get as big as it is. But I literally just talked to everybody that would go to the tournaments. Hey, you want to join the Discord, bro? Like we have a One Piece Discord. There's like 100 people in there. You can trade. You're looking to buy
That's
stuff,
cool.
right? They're like, yeah, man, I'm trying to buy cards. Like, yeah, well, there you go.
Dude, that's so
So
funny. It just takes one person like yourself to get a community going,
yeah,
So that's great, man.
yeah.
Out here we have like there's a freaking Discord for everything, man.
Mhm.
Like
Every
everything One
every
Piece card game
business has a
related.
Discord. It's
Yeah,
that's a good choice to do, by the way. But then
I know.
there's a
I
Discord
think
for
it's super
probably
smart.
every card game, every other thing as well. It's just a way
Yeah,
to connect.
it's everywhere. And that I guess that's one of the cool things about like living in a highly populated area is like you get the opportunity to like enjoy different scenes and like different shops.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like become a sub hobby to for me, like because I have a lot of time, so
Hmm.
I'm able to like go to one shop one day and then the next week I'll go to a different shop that does a tournament on that same day that I went to the week
Hmm.
prior, because so I'm just like kind of like able to experience all the different meta games and different shops and like get to
Hmm.
play and meet like all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun actually.
And that probably has, I really love that because that probably makes it competitive. I'm not saying between shops, but at least the shop is incentivized to, do a good job hosting, right? Because I don't know if
Exactly.
you've been to a shop that you're like, well, I didn't love this, right? I wish I could be a little better, right? But but that's always what's
They're
going to be.
everywhere
They're
out here.
everywhere.
It's
Yeah,
insane. Yeah,
yeah,
you kind of take the good and the bad.
yeah.
There's
If it,
definitely like my favorite shops that I'm
mm-hmm,
like, okay, so Mondays, this is the shop to be at,
mm-hmm,
like Tuesdays, this is it. But then I like so I told you I make YouTube content
mm-hmm,
and I'm trying to do like a new series of vlogs where I'm
mm-hmm,
like every vlog I do is like a different card shop and I'm
mm-hmm,
like showing around the card shop and then like I play in the tournament there and kind of like experience what the metagame and like basically give them a breakdown of like how I did throughout that day. So
mm-hmm.
I thought it was like really interesting and I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope people enjoy
I
watching it.
like it. I if it's not anything, let's say, because I've thought about making stuff like that before and thought who would want to watch that, right? But people do want to
Yeah.
see that. But at the very least, it's something for you to look back at and be like, oh, at least
Yeah.
it's immortalized, so I remember what I did that day, because you might remember it, but it's kind of nice having it there. It's almost like
Yeah,
making
that's true.
content for yourself and that really is really nice. So,
Yeah, and it's also like kind of enjoyable, and like what you
mhm,
said, you kind of go back and like
mhm.
experience
Yeah,
that day again.
I mean, I have the whole VOD recorded and everything from that. I recently got 10th place in an online regional, right? And so I took
Congratulations, by the way.
I took all 12 all 9 games I did and I voiced over them. And if it wasn't for someone watching it, it's for me to look back at and be like, "Oh, this is what happened." So, cuz
No, No,
Yeah.
dude, I really enjoyed watching your games. Like I
Good.
kind of like dabbled here and there for your videos that you
Hmm.
uploaded. And it's actually fun to watch, man. You have really
Yeah.
good commentary. So it's like it's really interesting to kind of like hear what's going on in your head as you
Hmm.
play the game. A little bit, not
Yeah.
really so much. But also just see like the different interactions that you have with the other player
Yeah.
when
And
you play
the
different
thing is too,
matchups.
sometimes it can be hard finding how do I play this deck, right? That actually does come up quite a bit when I was trying to find out how to play Doflamingo. Because,
Yeah.
and we can go into that later, why you even picked Doflamingo, or why did that reach out to you to play at like our big regional? Because you did well as well, right? And
Yeah,
I gotta be honest, I hated Doflamingo when the deck came out. I'll
really.
tell you more about that later, but I decided to go a little more degenerate with it, and then I made any reason to play it. Um but before we jump into that, let's just continue on with you. What card games did you play? You said you were 12 and you played card. Did you only play Yu-Gi-Oh?
Dude,
Um,
I can go on and on about my history, but just a quick breakdown. Basically, I started with Pokemon, just like everybody else,
okay.
right? When the hype was real, when I was like, I don't know, I don't even remember how
Uh,
young. I was very young. I was
yeah.
like 11 or whatever. I was just collecting the cards. I didn't even know how to
Hmm.
play it. I was just collecting it. From there, I get older, and then Yu-Gi-Oh became a thing. That
Hmm.
got huge. And then like seeing them play the game, I started collecting it at first. Like I just bought like the Japanese, structured deck. I didn't even know what the cards said on them. I just
Hmm.
like was so into Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, and I found that structured deck. And then I learned the game, and then from there it kind of just like, dude, I played so many different freaking card games from then on out.
Hmm.
Like I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I moved on to I don't even there's no specific order, but
Yeah, it's fine.
DBS I played a little
Okay.
bit. I played um L5R, I played Vanguard, I
Hmm.
played Battle Spirits,
Hmm.
I played White Schwartz,
Hmm.
it's just so many different card games
Hmm.
that I played. It's kind of been like an obsession of mine since like I was a kid. Like
Hmm.
card game has been like my main hobby,
Hmm.
and Magic the Gathering obviously. That's a game that I always play. I still have like my cards and stuff.
Hmm.
And then yeah, so basically from then on out, I just been playing card games, and then you already know my history with One Piece a little
Hmm.
bit.
I mean, One Piece has only been out since December. History, like a month is like, oh, dude, that's such a long time ago. I can't believe we used to
It
play
feels
that.
like it
you know.
almost, right? Because it's so crazy, like, the game has evolved so much already, I feel like, in the
Yeah.
last couple of months that
Hmm.
it feels like forever ago,
Yeah. Well, it's
you
like, oh,
know?
that was pre-ban list. When you think about a ban list, that's like in most card games, it takes them like a year to ban a card,
Right.
right? And so,
That
um,
was, like, a month ago
yeah, that
almost.
was probably 2 months ago. Dude, we're probably
Yeah,
talking
maybe
about this.
actually, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right,
that's
than
nuts.
2
Yeah.
months.
So
Mm,
that's really interesting.
mhm.
Say a little bit about my stuff real quick. I did a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid and stuff, but like nothing seriously, right? My brother's the driving force of most of my card games, right? And the main
Mhm.
thing is that he just really liked the card games. He's 4 years older than me, and he moved to Vegas when he went to high school instead of being here in Utah with my dad's side of the family. And thing there, he's had a lot more different friend group and just did a lot more card games. And his main card game was Yu-Gi-Oh, right? He had to
Mm.
max rate his deck even if he couldn't afford it, right? And then and then eventually he switched over to Vanguard. And Vanguard was his tried and true, right? Card Fight Vanguard is his favorite all-time card game. And that guy would try to get me into it. I would be the kind of the jackass that would say no, right? I was too busy into things like League of Legends, World of Warcraft, and I still play World of Warcraft, right?
I used to be, like, obsessed with League, like,
Yeah,
crazy
I
obsessed.
was too. Yeah, yeah.
I still
So
like it. I
I
like the
I
game,
still
just don't
like
play it that
watching
much.
some content about it. People talk about old stuff, and I could even be like, "Oh, do I remember when this was a big thing?" Or this. Oh, I hated they got rid of that. I used
Yeah.
to be Hardstock Diamond 5 to give you a reference, right? Of that.
Whoa,
So
okay, I
yeah,
wasn't that good.
yeah.
My
Well,
highest actually, I was close. My highest
mhm.
was Platinum 1.
That's
So
great. That's
I
basically the
went
same
P1.
thing. They're basically the same thing. So you
Nah,
you know the
you're
same
too
game.
nice.
Like I can't.
Nah, nah,
When I'm
Diamond, dude, you're in
no
a whole other
no
level,
hard
bro.
stuck Diamond 5 is like being worse than bronze.
Hard stuck Diamond 5.
Like you go to Diamond 4 and people just troll. People get boosted. It's a long time ago, right? That's a whole different story. But
Oh, dude.
yeah, so we could even go on that. But when I used to
That's
play,
a whole
season
nother
2, 3,
tangent.
4, 5, 6, and then yeah, I stopped for a while. But
Oh yeah, no, I've been playing since like season 1 League of Legends. I
mhm.
was like, I just missed. I was really sad about this because they came out with a skin for people that made beta. They gave them that like UFO Corgi
Mm,
skin, but I played like right after
mhm,
beta, and then I even have, dude, it's crazy story, and I kind of regret like
mhm.
losing it, but I learned about League when I went to Best Buy one day, and they actually still had like the DVDs of games that you can buy for
Yeah.
PC games. I bought that DVD, which I'm like sad now.
They
Or
had
it
a
wasn't a
League of
DVD, but a
Legends
game,
DVD
right?
download?
No, it was like it's not a DVD. It's actually just, back when they had like CDs for
Yeah.
like games,
Mhm.
right?
Like
And
for
you
like
just
WoW,
like
yeah.
yeah, you have to like put it in and install it or whatever. I
Mhm.
bought the actual physical League of Legends game, and like that's how I got started. It was just like
I never
such a
knew that
long
League of
fucking
Legends
time.
had a physical download CD
Dude,
game.
they did, and now it's worth like a lot.
Yeah, I never
Now I'm
even
like
knew that
sad, like,
existed. Like I just downloaded it off the internet. My brother,
yeah,
guess who got me that game? My brother, right? I told him, "Oh,
right.
I was like playing chess online. Something I was bored. I was
Mm.
super bored." And he got me into League, and then I became crack addicted to that. So yeah. So again, my brother is another another impulse
He's your
person, right?
gateway, bro.
Yeah,
He
and then
gets you into
he
all
when
the
I don't know if
crazy
you
nerdy
played
stuff.
Vanguard when it was in V format. When it started V, he bought a case and he gave me
Wow.
the best deck and said,
What were you playing?
"It was the best deck at the time. The very first set, the very first 4 decks was Oracle Think Tank, right? I don't know if you played that in V.
OTT!
Yeah,
Yo, I
Oracle
played
Think.
OTT
Yeah,
in the
Imperial
first
Daughter,
format. That
Imperial.
shit, that deck is so fun, dude. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
that deck was just overpowered. Okay, I want to say that, right? But that's why I
Yeah,
played it. That's right. But
and the
then
cards were like super cute. I'm like, okay, this is my
yeah,
deck.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you just be funny things. You placed down reared like 2 deers. Just,
Bro,
just
this is so crazy, but there's a direct parallel between what you started with there and like what we play now. I think DOfi players, we just like decks that think a
oh,
lot.
I
You know what I
I
mean?
think
It's
so. My
very
deck,
interesting.
the deck I ended up doing a lot more success. I was a little successful in Vanguard, right? It was not Oracle Think Tank, but I played a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So, but I could go into that because we could vibe off this for like forever, and I'm fine with that. So let's see here. So Vanguard, I did Vanguard, and then I did a ton of that for years and years and years. My brother got into White Shorts. I did some casual White Shorts because the community was actually better locally. Funny enough, right?
Yeah.
That's
People are
just
nicer.
that's just what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I could play like they're making a Goblin Slayer version. Like, oh, I love Goblin Slayer, you know. So people like will pick up their favorite anime, and
Yeah, that's how
that's
they
really
get you.
fun, right? That's how they get me. But then I stopped playing Vanguard when a little after COVID, right?
Okay.
I did do some things actually like content creation with Vanguard, right? But
Mhm.
generally, yeah, I kind of played it casually, not at a local level at all, like online. And
Okay.
I remember this org I was in. I can still quote this motherfucker to this day. Okay, so this guy who's running this org, and I was like, yeah, dude, webcam will be the future of card games. It's just, it makes sense. People still want to play with cards. People
Yeah.
do not prefer to play on like a Hearthstone kind of plat thing. You know, they don't like clicking
Yeah.
around. If they can choose to play with cards, they'll do it. It just takes a little bit
Oh
more
yeah.
work. And he
100%.
was like, no, it's dead. You're stupid. Go away. You know, like literally the most dumb thing
Mhm.
ever. I should have just like left away. I should have like did my
Yeah.
own webcam thing, right? Because it is huge, right? People still want to play, and there's a lot more prizes, and people can.
Yeah, because
I'm glad we
people like
have webcam games actually.
feeling doing things in real life, not
Hmm.
like virtually. I mean,
Yeah.
remember if you remember like during COVID, everybody was saying like, okay, like when COVID is over, nobody's ever gonna go watch a movie theater in the movies, right? And then look at it now. There's still like I just went to the movies yesterday and
Hmm.
I like it. It's because like people like experiencing things in real life,
Mhm.
not just like in virtual
Yeah.
world, you know?
And even if they can experience that face to face right here, you know, I'm still doing what I'm doing, right? It's just understanding what
Right.
my opponent's doing, right? Because
But
all
it's that
we're
like physical like texture of like holding the cards and like playing the cards, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
It's just a different experience in my
There's
opinion.
that, and I always say online is rigged, and you know, it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely not as a hype of an experience for yourself, right? It's not as fun for you, right?
I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you would agree, like online regionals, like it felt kind of like you were cheating sometimes because, or even your opponent, because it's
Mhm.
so easy to like
Oh,
cheat in an online format like
yeah, we
that.
can get it. It is, but people are the prize support is so high that it actually decentivizes cheating because basically there's a million people like me that just record their own games, and if they have any doubt in
Mhm.
their mind that someone's cheating, and I mean, and even in your real card games, there's always things like soft cheating, and we can go over that. Like you accidentally saw a card, but you can be honest with your opponent. Like I accidentally saw this, kind of shuffle this, right?
Yeah.
That's on your honesty. And honestly, if you're cheating in a card game, especially a webcam card game, you have big problems, right?
Yeah, so for okay, so here's my thing with
Okay.
online, right? What's stopping somebody from playing like, let's say I'm playing Kaido,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no deck checks or nothing. You could send your list or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna run 5 Onigashima.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck it. I'm gonna run 5 Onigashima, and then you're not gonna see my hand. So even if I draw my fifth
Mm-hmm.
one, I'm just gonna be holding it in my hand,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's how I'm gonna cheat, right? I'm not talking about like just like sleight of hand stuff,
Mm-hmm.
more like running multiple copies of like key cards in your deck.
Yeah, I mean, if I could run 5 Mihawks, I would, right? So,
Right.
let me think here. Yeah, you know, you're 100% right about that. However, right? I guess, I guess it's always comes down to honesty, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, if someone's deemed as a cheater, they have to. People have to prove that first of all, right? And then
Mhm.
you're right. Someone could do that, but like, where's the fun in that for them, right? They're not going to be
Well,
around forever because of that, right? It's
well,
just
the problem with people like that, yeah, I agree. They're gonna get caught eventually, and I hope they get caught in a good way. But
mhm,
um, the incentive for those people is they just want to win, you know? Like
mhm,
the prizing in this game is so good,
mhm.
and like it just makes people do bad
I,
things.
I feel like this game is so simple already, and it doesn't really play. It doesn't play itself, by the way. Sometimes it does, but the fact is, it's hard to cheat. And how would you cheat, right? Like,
Yeah,
right? I'm playing Doflamingo. I'm already stacking the deck, right?
you're
What
cheating.
what more can I do, right? I can't just add Dawn. Like it's math
Yeah,
at that point. So I guess at that point, it's whatever your starting hand is. How can you make your deck more consistent? Is I guess the what you're
yeah,
saying. Why not just have more Onigishimas or
yeah. So
um if I could have 8 Peronas, that'd be great. So yeah, it's just
that would be see. This is how you know that. How I know that you will never cheat because you're a bad cheater. You're trying to run eight
I,
Veronas.
I'm too
Trying to be
honest,
slick,
right?
man. Like
Yeah,
5, you know. No.
yeah.
So I guess maybe it's my background in card games that have made me like kind of more jaded towards like
Oh,
players in
I
ways,
I never
especially
thought of
like in
that.
Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh, man, people take it in the next level. But
Yeah, I forgot about that.
fortunately, One Piece is like such a great community. I have never had a problem with like cheaters in One Piece.
Yeah,
But
I never thought about other card games because other card games do have insane cheaters. And when people
oh
always
yeah,
talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, they're like, dude,
right.
it's whoever's the better cheater. And it ends up being comical where it's kind of like sad, right? The
Mhm.
only people who lose are the honest people, right?
Yeah.
But
But
it
it's funny though when those people get caught in like championship games and
mhm,
it's like recorded
mhm.
and they cheat recorded, they
Yeah.
get caught.
Yeah,
Man,
and I've
it's
I've
pretty.
I've seen compilations of Magic videos where they're just cheating, cheating, cheating. So you're right, but I feel like in this game it's hard to cheat, and in Vanguard there just was a different in Weiss there was okay. Listen, Weiss Schwartz, there's like no point in cheating. What I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a fanboy game. Let's be
Well,
honest. You play
this
that game because you like the
yeah,
anime.
but
You're
in
not trying to like
Vanguard
win. huge tournaments and stuff.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
just trying to play the game. Honestly, to me, it was more
right?
about like not losing and being better. And you could do that 10 other ways besides drawing an additional card by accident, right?
Right. And going back to kind of like bridging this to One Piece, you can remind me later about
mhm.
like I did have a stream game at in my top 16 in
Yes.
Montreal where my opponent actually he didn't cheat, but
Yeah.
he got caught accidentally cheating
Mhm.
because he put out like I'll tell you
Tell me.
the
It's fine.
story when we get there.
Oh, you tell me we get
You want
there.
me?
Okay. I mean,
All right.
since we're on the point of cheating, maybe we'll just talk about that because there's a lot of things we can go over, but I'm gonna like subtext this video into certain sections. So cheating, this is what we're talking about right now, right? So,
Yeah.
so what
Well,
did he do?
well, I wouldn't call it cheating because
Yeah,
it wasn't his fault. Like
I've done
I
that
don't
before too.
believe it was
So
his fault, but maybe we can have the audience decide or whatever. But anyways,
judicial
so
court.
spoiler alert, I made yeah, I made top 16 in Montreal, right? So my first opponent, I get to the venue and like everybody's like wondering who's playing what and everybody's terrified. So I got there and I'm like, man, okay, so I know the guy's name because I was third seed going into
Mm-hmm.
the top 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that third seed means that you play the what is
14th
that? The
place.
14th seed,
Yeah.
right? So I knew his name, so I was looking around and then they did our deck checks. And when they do your deck checks, they basically like have you leave your deck on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person that you're gonna play will leave their deck on the table across from you, and then you walk
Mm-hmm.
away. And the guy already left his deck there, so I didn't know idea what he was playing. But I went and dropped my deck off, and then he ran back in the room, and he's like, "Oh shoot, I forgot my leader card." And this dude was like fully dressed in like law, like he was law. He had like the
Okay.
law hat, like the
Yeah.
coat, everything. And I was like, "Oh my god, am I playing law right now?" I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Dofi's worst matchup is law. Like OPO1, it was
Oh,
Kid.
it's the worst. Oh no, I think it was worse
Oh.
against Law, but that's go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. But it's right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Law is like our worst matchup. And I was like, "Oh my god, round 1 I'm playing freaking Law."
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So yeah, like I was saying, at the time I hadn't played a lot of Law
Mm-hmm.
and I was losing to a lot of Law.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, every time I play Law, I always went first, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
doing what Dofi likes, go first. But then I was like, you know what? This guy's top 16. He's freaking wearing a Law outfit. He's gonna be good. I gotta mix it up. So I won the die. I got to pick order because I was
Mm-hmm.
third seed.
Yeah.
So I was like, I will choose to go second.
Mm-hmm.
So we played it out. And by the end of it, it was such a close game. I was literally at 0 life, and I only had that turn to kill him, and I won, but
Mm-hmm.
barely. Like it was like down to the last like counter.
Yeah.
So I barely won that round. I was like, okay, thank God. But it was such a grindy game. We
Mm-hmm.
took it lasted 52 minutes.
Yeah.
So
The
in Top
first
Cut, you
game.
only have an hour, right?
Oh my god. Okay.
So in Top Cut, so this if you guys don't know, and the people listening to this don't know, when you're in Top Cut, you're playing best 2 out of 3,
Mm-hmm.
and you only have 1 hour to complete,
Yeah.
the match. So our game 1 took 52 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
after I won that one, game 2, I was just like, oh, by the way, I didn't say this. So when we sat down to play,
Yeah.
my opponent, I flipped my leader, right? The guy started laughing and I was like, what's so funny? He was like, dude, I have literally never lost to Dofi
Mm-hmm.
ever. And since OP01, I've never
Yeah.
lost to Dofi. And I was like, okay. And then he started to flex. He
Get
was like, oh,
humble.
I got 8th in Niagara and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. Good for you. So we're playing it out. And then as the game went on, that first game, as it went like longer and longer, he started to like, I could see him getting scared. Like his hands started to like shiver. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, he's getting nervous. So when I beat him, we went into game 2.
Yeah.
and then I had 8 minutes. So game plan for me was just literally,
I get it.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna play my normal speed, right? Play normal speed, because if this game ends without him killing me, then I win the match, right? And top 16 is like the prize gap from like top
Oh, it's
16
3
and
or
like
4
getting
grand. It's nuts. Yeah.
insane, right?
Yeah.
Insane.
What?
So
What? Real quick, because we were talking about cheating. You were saying something about your opponent. That
yeah,
how does
so
this?
this is when it happens. This
Okay,
is when it happens.
this is what
Sorry, I'm
happens.
just like,
Okay.
yeah, I had to give you guys a quick back, because he was very nervous, right? So we went into game 2,
Hmm.
and then we're playing, and then so I'm attacking life, right? Because I'm trying to get him low as possible. And then because the time ends, if whoever has more health, right, you win, whatever. So I on my second, I went first, and on my second turn I swung 1 damage, right?
Hmm.
And then on my second turn, I swung at him again with 2 bodies, because I spent my whole hand protecting the body I got on my second turn.
Yeah.
And he took 2 damage. Okay, so once I ended my turn, it went back to him. The judge was like, or I should say the person running like the stream was like,
Hmm.
put his hand out, and then the judge stopped our game, and we were like, okay, what's going on? And then they were like talking and stuff, and then the judge came back, and the judge was like, did you take a life last turn? And he said that to my opponent, and my opponent was like, yeah. And then the judge was like, did you take 2 life? And then he was like, yeah. And then the judge was like, oh, well, how are you still at 2 life? Because you took 3 altogether.
Oh, he put 5 life out there.
Yeah. So when they said that,
Oh.
they started to like, they couldn't go back on the stream because it was live. So they had to like do a whole process of elimination, and yeah. So basically my opponent like put out an extra life. I
Mm.
don't think it was like
I don't
malicious.
think so. It doesn't sound malicious, right?
Yeah, I don't think it was, but it
Yeah.
could have potentially have been like, a
Yeah.
form of cheating, right? But
Yeah, so
yeah,
soft cheating in a way, but I mean,
it made it kind of awkward.
you would have caught
Yeah.
that, and you would have, it's reversible, right?
Yeah.
I accidentally soft cheated in my first game of the online regional. In the first video, I said I
Oh, you
accidentally,
did?
yeah, I had 10 Dawn. I put a Dawn to attack their 7 cost, or the 7K king, because I want to get their hand. I'm playing against Magellan, right? And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
pay 9 to play some Mihawk, but I only turned 8 Dawn sideways because I'm thinking, oh, it's all but 1 Dawn,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then I use that 1 Dawn to play a Perona. So, I mean, all I'd have to do is go back and not play the Perona, which
Right.
it could have changed some things. I think I still would have won the game, right? But
Yeah.
I technically cheated, right? That's technically, was it
Right.
within the rules, right?
Exactly. So what happened in that game, if you don't mind me asking?
I won. But like,
did they catch it? And
no,
then they
nobody
like,
caught. I caught it when I was reviewing the videos. I said, "Oh, I'm a dirty little cheater. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize this." Right?
Oh, so nobody caught it, like at the time.
No, and it was just me and my
wow.
opponent, and I didn't catch it. He didn't catch it, and
Dude,
going back,
I
it's
did, like,
easy. Yeah,
I need like a really big cheat, a really big soft cheat
okay.
against my opponent in a tournament before.
Okay.
I played like I was playing Ivankov, and I already
Okay.
had my set of Ivankov and Luffy on the field. I
Mhm.
played my second on that turn. I played my Ivankov and another Luffy, so I had 2 and 2, and then I swung with my Luffy, and then my 2 Ivankovs on accident.
Oh, okay.
So I was like an extra
Yeah.
life. I was like, oh shit, and then I realized like later, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man.
I feel
That
like
was
this
really
game should have a rule: when you place a card, it comes in upside down, like reverse, like Weiss Schwartz kind of does, so you know that it's that you know that you just barely played this and it has summoning sickness, right?
Yeah, something like that, instead of just relying on the players, because sometimes you'll be playing a deck, right? Like Law,
Mhm.
for example. You're like, you have the turn in your brain, and then you're playing it out, and then you're
Mhm.
so far into your head already, like you forget certain things, and like sometimes it could be just
there's a girl at
you
my
played the
locals who does
character.
that with Law specifically. She started playing Law and she's like swinging. I'm
Mm.
like, oh well, guess what? You can't swing with that. So go ahead and take that back.
Right.
Like, oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
it happens to the best of us.
Mm-hmm.
But in like a high level tournament setting, it could lose you a game. Like
Oh.
it happened to
Mm-hmm.
against my opponent in Treasure Cup in Vegas. He had game,
Mm-hmm.
but he put his extra Dawn on a character that he just played to rest my blocker. Like
Mm.
it was a green deck, and he had Neko Mamushi and Izo, and then he forgot he played the Neko to rest my blocker, not the Izo. And then when he attached his Dawn and he was going for game, I
Mm-hmm.
called him out. I'm like, yo, dude, you put your Dawn on your Izo.
Mm-hmm.
You put it on the wrong character. And then he like looked down and he like realized it.
Oh, yeah.
And then he like tried to take it back, and I was like, well, I have to call the judge. Because this is
Yeah.
we're trying to play for top cut, right? This
Yeah,
is
I
pretty
get
much
it.
like, so the judge came, long story short, the judge was like, yeah, we can't reverse that, because once you commit your Dawn, it's committed.
Yeah,
So
you're
he
right.
actually lost because of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that happens, right? So I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like I wouldn't call it it is a skill check, right? But it's it's a skill check, I guess. Suppose I would say that, right? It's a skill check to make sure you know what happened that game, right? So,
Yeah. It was I mean, honestly, I felt pretty kind of bad that I had to do that,
mhm,
but at that level, you need to know your shit. You know, you're playing in a
mhm,
big tournament, you have to know what you're doing. People will
yeah,
call you out because you're
yeah,
playing for, big
yeah.
prizes and stuff like
At the
that.
end of the day,
So,
sometimes your biggest opponent is yourself to make sure you don't make mistakes. Actually, that's a good segue. I feel like this game, compared to most games I've played, is whoever makes the least amount of mistakes most of the time, right?
oh yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah. So, what's
It's
actually up with this game?
it's so interesting because if you recall, like in the beginning of this video, you were like talking about how easy One Piece is to learn,
Hmm.
and it is. It's so easy
Hmm.
to learn. But there is like when you get into like the pro level, like the high competitive environment level,
Hmm.
there is so much metagame involved, and not
Yeah.
even just the cards, it's like the players. Like you're trying to read opponents now. You're playing like poker,
Hmm.
they have 3 cards in hand. How many bricks do you think they have,
Yeah,
like
you could talk to your opponent and like, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Exactly. There's a lot of things you could do, and it makes it hard for them, especially if they're not used to, let's say, playing in person or playing on a webcam.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a great player, you're able to read your opponent based on the actions they take. I mean, like a
Hmm.
simple thing, right? This is something that people should know is if I swing for like, let's say if I swing exact damage and you're countering it with a 2K,
Hmm.
then we know that you don't have any 1Ks in hand, or you
Hmm.
really like your 1K in your hand,
Hmm.
right? So it's like a sign, and you're collecting this data and you're using that later
Yeah.
on to take advantage of the game. So,
Yeah. Oh, I've done this before. I've countered with the pacifista in hand, right? Because they're going
mhm.
to go for life, and I countered with the pacifista, and I had a Kuma on field. He's like, you know what? He switched gears and he's attacked my characters instead, right? I didn't have that pacifista in hand anymore, but
Mhm.
I won the game because he should have went for life instead of my
Oh,
characters.
see?
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
you
it's
could
stuff
bait
like
them
that.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And going back to that moment, I've been in that situation too, and I baited people to killing my Kuma when I had like, okay, I had 2 pacifistas in hand,
Hmm.
and then I countered with 1 pacifista, and they're like, "Oh, they don't have pacifista." They kill your Kuma, and then you play
Yeah.
your second
I
one.
think it actually
So
shows that you definitely have a pacifista in your hand if you counter out. But that time
that's
I
true
countered
too.
out because the card was a 2K, right? So
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
happened with mine. But yours is more of a, yeah, that I think it definitely shows you have one in hand. You have too many, you know?
See, there's a lot of ways, like, people can read into it. Some people
Hmm.
that are not as experienced might
Yeah.
read it a different way, right?
Yeah,
So
and actually, Kuma Pacifista is one of those really, really, really strong mind games with your opponent. Well,
oh, dude,
it presents like a really
it
big
does.
challenge. You think it's just a simple thing, right? But like
Yeah, no, it is.
it isn't. It isn't. It requires
I'll
too
I'll
much for them to get rid of it.
I'll deliberately mess with my opponents. Like
Yeah.
I'll have a rested passive Kuma, right? And I have passive beast in hand. If they swing with exact, which is what most people will do, they're like, I'm gonna go exact because he wants it to die, so they'll play the passive
So you
beast.
counter it, yeah.
I'll counter it. I'll be like, I want you to work for it.
Yeah.
And then when they see that, when I counter with just the 1K, they're like, oh, they don't have it. And then they'll swing in for like 7 or something because they think I'm trying to save it. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. You know? It ends up getting in their head too. It's a psychological game over many games, you know? When it's like a culmination, because sometimes you don't have a pacifist in hand and you're like, well, I gotta swing with this Kuma because if I swing with the Kuma, he may not attack it, so he's just gonna be on the board for the rest of the game because if he never calls it out, which happens, right? So especially inexperienced players. So
yeah, in like a in a closed environment where you're going to the same locals, people know people, so they're like, oh, yeah, this guy is sneaky.
let's segue this into Doflamingo talk. Okay, I guess Doflamingo. What did you do in OPO1? Like, what was your what did you do? Something? Did you play everything?
So OP, when I first started playing One Piece, I actually picked up Kaido first. Because obviously that was a structure deck.
I'll tell you about that later.
This looks like fun. I like green in Magic, and green is like the big clunky, like big, and you kind of ramp your mana to play the big cards. And I'm like, this is Kaido. So I played that for like a week, and then after a week of playing it and getting my face kicked in like multiple times, I'm like, this is not working out. So I'm gonna switch to Doflamingo. I had all the extra cards for the deck, and I really like, okay, look, I don't know anything about One Piece or their characters, but just looking at the card, I'm like, yo, this guy is pimping. He got like a whole situation. He looks cool as fuck. Let me build this deck. So I built the deck, and like, I'm not even joking. When I finished the deck, I'm like just playing on my bed and just like test playing, and I'm like, this deck is so strong.
Yep.
It feels so good. I'm like, this deck is super fun, and it feels like really powerful.
Were you a Virgo kind of person back in OPO1? Did you run Virgos?
I am the person that never decided. I'm like between running it and not running it for the longest time, and I never did make that decision. I think by the end of it, I just kept it in. Just
when you went to Vegas, but I went to Vegas, by the way, just so you know as well, right?
You did?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that too. But when you went to Vegas, did you play Virgo or not play Virgo?
I did play Virgo when I went, and I actually, like, if I recall, I regretted it.
Really?
Yeah, I regretted running.
There was another build that was pretty good. And it was running Sentomaru, but like that made the deck more consistent, which is now what I would have done, but like 3 Sentomaru, right? But at the time I ran 4 Virgo.
There was some list that was going around that was like reportedly like winning all the reportedly winning big events, and they ran Sentomaru. And it was such a weird build.
There was one in Miami. And he makes YouTube content as well, right? And I think he plays Z now. Z is his thing, right? I can't remember his name right now. We'll talk about it later. But no, that's Z is the what he plays, right? That's what he makes most of his content around now. But his build was a little different, and the time in Vegas, the meta was so different. Also being a smaller tournament, but I don't know. Like a lot of my people went, and you noticed right away. There's a ton of Luffy. Okay, I played Go Around Kid. It was like Luffy everywhere. I don't know if that you saw that, right?
It was so funny because I actually had a different experience than you did. So like for me, I was looking for Luffy's. I'm like, well, give me all the Zoros and the Luffy's. Don't give me no Kid.
I guess around me was Luffy, not who I was facing generally.
Oh yeah, dude. I played so many Kid that day. I'm like, oh my god. This is the deck I don't want to play.
But you have to play around it. That's the main thing. So, so you switched to DOfi. I'll tell you I'll tell you a little bit about my story because this is my first podcast here, right? So we played pre-release. My brother, he said, "Oh, blue is the best." I asked him, "What's the best one?" He's like, "I think, in my opinion, blue." Right? His opinion, it was blue, and it was crocodile. that is really good in trial deck. It was very good. It was because it shut
Oh
because
yeah.
green was good, right? But the Doflamingo just shut down 7-cost kid. That was the meta, right? That was super
Yeah.
broken. Red was a joke unless you drew a Sanji early game, then you were no longer a joke, right? That's literally how
That
people
is so
play, but
funny.
people didn't know what to do. Like people were like I was like I didn't know how to counter effectively, you know? And
Mhm.
like I'm placing like a 1 cost that has like 3k power. I'm like, dude, I have to put 2 Dawn on this to attack with this. This sucks. This really
Right.
sucks. And like this leader skill really sucks. Why am I using this? Right. So
Yeah, yeah.
the main thing is that I felt that it did kind of suck, but I played it a lot. But what was really good, and you'll see this in if you looked at any tournament results back in what was only trial decks, 6 out of the
Mhm.
8 decks would be Kaido. It would be high rolling Kaidos, and it was absolutely really strong
Wow.
because Doflamingo did really well. Not the Doflamingo, but Crocodile did really well into green.
Yeah.
But the problem was that it did nothing into Kaido. Bouncing a queen was actually good for them. They liked it, right?
Yeah.
And their bodies were too big to get rid of, and even if your blockers just got KO'd by every single king, right? It was
Right.
because they had the most blockers, and in the form of Love Mellow was broken, right? So that's why it was
Yeah.
so strong. But purple was very strong.
funny.
So I also switched to purple and played purple at the beginning of OPO1. But I was playing a few things,
Oh,
and
okay.
my brother gave me because he bought a case, right? And he gave me for my birthday, because my birthday was that day when we opened the case, right? He gave me
Mm.
the Doflamingo alt art, and I'm like, oh, dude, you gave me a curse. So I played
That's
the
so
deck,
cool.
and I found it too frustrating. I didn't understand what the curve of this deck was. Like, what am I really going for? What does a game look like? Can I look up a game where what's the end of a game look like? What am I playing here?
Mhm.
Right? And it took me some time. I played Blurple Dial, and I loved Blurple Dial. I was destroying with that at locals. But then, you know what gets me? And I'll always say this: I hate
Mm.
law. I fucking
Oh
hate
yeah.
law, dude.
Always and forever,
I have
dude.
no sympathy for any law players ever. If they say, "Oh, dude,
Oh.
my dog died today," be like, "Good, dude, because you play law, and I don't like you because you."
You know what
Yeah,
though?
I
You gotta
just
respect the law players because it takes a lot of skill to be good with law,
I gotta say
actually.
this from my experience seeing law players. You can put 10 decks in front of the 10 law players, right? There's only
Mhm.
one law player and 9 law decks. Okay, so most of the time they're not going to be that good. They're just kind of doing too much stuff and wasting your time.
Yeah.
Most of the time I've experienced, right? But sometimes they might do things that's crazy, and I feel like I'm playing checkers here by just placing the top card of my deck and then placing a card, and that's it. And then they go, okay, well, I'll play Yu-Gi-Oh by just doing 100 different
Right.
skills.
It's
They're in a
pretty
different
crazy.
game. They're playing a different game. That's why I have no sympathy, and they will destroy any deck that has 4 life, right? And it's a 4 life deck.
Yeah.
And in my experience, so I gave up playing Blurple Dial, and it said, you know what? Let's just play something that I think is good. Doflamingo actually looks pretty good. And so let me redo this, rewatch 100 videos, do that, right? And then OPO2 came, I was switched to Zoro, just so you know, right? And then
Oh wow.
I couldn't figure out Zoro because all the counters in your hand, or all the 2K counters in your hand, were too strong, because I want to play those. I want to play Brooks, I want to play Otamas. And so I never countered. And so I would just die. Even if I'd either win a game really fast, like with like a wide board, or I'd just lose because I didn't know how to counter effectively with
Yeah,
that deck.
that happened to me too. I've actually tried to learn Luffy very recently,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed like I'm just eating all the damage. I was just like, because I never want to use my cards. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep this,
Yeah.
that. This is too good. I don't want to use this.
Yeah.
And I always, by the end of it, I always just die because I never like use my counters. Maybe it's like a blue mentality that we have. It's just like retaining card advantage as much as possible.
Yeah, maybe that is. But the thing is, the 2K counters in our deck that's what they are. They're 2K counters. Very rarely do we play them from hand or from DOfi skill. If and like that's Mihawk, right? As an example. You'll still play it if that's the only option, right? But
Right.
you can at least get it back with the Gecko Moria.
Yeah, I think it's so
So
funny you're having a
yeah,
similar experience.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what made you go back into Dofi?
Um, I think I watched a video or two. I think the main thing is, and I'll probably relate back to this, is John Ashby. He does Beats by Ass official. He makes content, right? and
Mm.
he did a lot of Doflamingo, and I would watch this content. I'm like, it is a very good deck, and I have to figure out why. The main reason I thought it would be good, because someone had an opinion that blue is actually very good against green, but then the meta came, people started getting good. It's like, oh no, it's the opposite. Green is very good against blue. I'm like, okay, well, how do I? There's no green in my local area. No one plays green, right?
Really?
So everyone's playing red or something else, right? So let me play this, and then I'll play my deck to beat green. So my deck is already winning, has a winning matchup against everything else, but I'll adjust my deck so it can beat green if I see it. And I had a lot of practice online, specifically against green, right? And when I went to Vegas, I only played one green. It's my last match, right? But let's actually, can we talk about that before we jump into any Montreal? That's okay, about Vegas.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So Vegas, I was at Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was playing DOfi in Vegas, and I did pretty well. I went X and 2 in Swiss, and I actually made it into top 16.
Oh, you did?
And
Okay.
then when I made it to top 16, my first game was against a friend of mine, actually from locals in LA, who went all the way to Vegas, and he was playing green, obviously, because everybody
was it
was
the
freaking.
winner?
No, he didn't win. He actually he got top 8, and he beat me. It was very close. We went to like game 3, and we were like on time, and it was his last turn to kill me. And he didn't kill me, but he ended up with 1 more life. So I lost top 16.
Do you think, looking back, if that game continued on as a normal game, not by time, do you think it'd have been? You think he probably still had the small edge over that game, or you think it'd have been really close? You don't even know. You think you'd win? This is based on the way the game was going.
If I'm being honest with myself, I think he would have inevitably won, just like green always inevitably wins if they get their 8-drop kid against blue. But being on that, in the spot where we were in crunch time, we were just swinging into life. It could have went either way. Like our last game with like a minute left, it was just like we're just like trying to get as much damage in as possible, and he just ended up doing it better than me.
Okay, got it.
How was your experience? By the way,
I went really 6-3. I had high expectations, but unfortunately, I lost the first game. And honestly, I like now that I love OPO2 a lot more than I did OPO1. But OPO1, I felt I had to go first no matter what, right? And I won 1 dice roll all day. It was so bad. And so I faced Luffy first round. I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. But it was a close game, and he went first. So he won. I was like, dang. The second game, I went against this girl. We were on table 69, right? And she's playing Kaido. That was a close match. I beat her there, but I thought I had a good edge into Kaido, right? Yeah. Table 69 was pretty good.
You're running Pacifistas, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, I run 4 Kuma Pacifista. I'm a 4. That's a mentality. That's a great mentality, right? I cut it at one point, but then I put it back in because I realized how broken it was.
Yeah, seeing that against purple is like you have an edge every time you see that against purple.
Absolutely. And the next game, I played against this guy. He plays in Chicago. He played. I think he also went 6-2 that game, that tournament, right? I beat him. He wins the die roll. I said, "Oh man, I can't win a die roll." He felt so bad for me, right? He let me choose. He let me go first. I'm like, "Oh my god, thank you so much. I appreciate that." So this guy had a pizza box as his play mat. I don't know if you saw this, right? I have like a whole thing in my Discord. I took a picture of every opponent I played against, right? It's really awkward when I lost. It's really awkward when I won, right? But he went like 6-2, right? And our game was close. So he might have like gotten the top cut if he like won against me. He had to face against different opponents, right? But I think he played in Chicago too. He's a really cool guy. But essentially, I played matches. I ended up at one point, I was 2 wins, 3 losses. And I was so down the dumps. I was like, dang, like I can't get top cut. I'm not even sure if I'm going to get a chopper. Like, okay, man, I'm like so down the dumps, and my other friends are like, oh yeah, we're like 4-1 or 5-0, right? And then I end up just winning every game after that. And sometimes it was even against I remember there was this really good Magic player. He played Crocodile. I remember I listened to his podcast the day before. He had a podcast because I was just listening to content, right?
I listened to that one.
You did, yeah. I listened to that, and I was
like, two of them went to that tournament with playing Croc, right?
Yeah. And so I think one guy got 17th place, right? So that was he actually bubbled out,
Yeah.
But the other guy, I faced him, and essentially he threw, right? Really? He could have just threw a couple more Dawn and killed me, or he could have just played the 3-cost blocker, right? So, and I had like 2 cards in hand, so the most I could do was 4K. So he just swings exactly 7K, and I go, okay, 2K, 1K. He's like, oh, I should have just put more dot on my character and killed you right there. I'm like, yeah, oh well, man. I played Mihawk, and was able to barely win that game, against the Crocodile.
Wow.
So
he, you cut him out of top 16, bro.
No. That was a different guy. I did not face that guy. It was his friend, right? So
was he already doing poorly by that time?
Yeah, we were both X3. We were both X3, right? Then he went on to be X4, right? So yeah. And then the last game,
an all-time low at that point.
Yeah,
you're both kind of like,
we're like, okay, right? And so the last game, I'm against a kid. I'm like, I think I get in top 64 if I win this game. This is pretty good, right? So and he literally got the nut, placing I believe it was a Bonnie into a Raizo. So he's drawing super cards, but he didn't draw an 8-cost kid ever. So I had I had 2 9-cost Mihawks, a Virgo out, and he just dude, this is by the time he actually got 8-cost kid, his hand was gone, right? So
it was already over.
Yeah, I was shocked because his beginning of this game started so strong. I'm like, he doesn't have to play 8-cost kid. He could probably wreck me. But
what was your mindset going into that, as he was playing these cards?
Oh, I'm like, dude, this guy's high rolling me. This is nuts. That's what I was thinking. But I'll just keep going. Okay, okay, I don't have Virgo on this turn. Okay, I'll place a Mihawk. Okay, now I can place a Virgo and place this and have some counter, and then I'll place another Mihawk. And then he just looked at me. I think he scooped at some point. It was like, yeah, I can't really do anything, right? Because my board was too big, right? And I'm like, well, I play 4 Virgos, right? I'm gonna see one. He was the Virgo was tilting
down to once you got him down to little to no cards in hand, it's game over.
Yeah, well, I had to play this. You have to play this weird game against kids. Sometimes you don't want to just rush their life, because they're fine going down to 0 cards in life because their hand has 12 cards, right?
OP01. That's what made it kind of degenerate for me. Was playing against kid. Anytime you play kid, it's like you're screwed if you do. You're screwed if you don't. It's man, what do you do? You gotta just hope that you're killing high value characters to force them to discard cards in hand, or just go full throttle and just try to kill them before they play the 8 drop, which almost never works.
So with that too, I get that. I get my chopper. People in my locals were like, there were people that were doing really good before that did not get anywhere close to top 64, right? I'm like, so they were kind of they were shocked that I did well, but I'm like, yeah, I came back pretty well. I in every game I posted a picture and tell people I lost this, won this, so people were following kind of me on the Discord a little bit too, right?
That is so funny, dude.
So they were having a good time, but yeah, it was good.
That's amazing. Actually, that kind of happened to me too, because going into it, I wasn't behind. I had a win streak. I was X and O going to the 6th round, and then I lost my 6th, and then my 7th, and then I needed to win the last 2, and I won the last 2.
I think it was only 8 rounds, I believe, right?
Or 8. I needed to win my 8th round, and then I actually won my 8th round, which was what happened to be was my only Luffy game that whole tournament, and I wanted to play red. So it worked out in the end.
I guess it did work out. So let's jump into Montreal then. So with Montreal, First of all, I mean that's quite a big trip. I don't where is Montreal? I never even looked that up. Is that in the Eastern
Dude,
Canada or Western
it's like
Canada?
on the east side of Canada.
Yeah.
So it's on the French side,
Yeah. That's
right?
that's a financial decision to go there, you know. That's like let's say
It was more like
California.
it was a decision based off of my ability to get a ticket in any event. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
had the worst luck. Even like the last online regionals that came up,
Mhm.
didn't get into any of them. I was like up an hour before setting up. I always miss events. So when
Mhm.
I got in that day when I knew the Montreal and the Chicago, the Peoria events were coming up, I was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna register for both, and whichever one takes me, I will just do it because I'm so
Okay.
sick of this. So the first registration was for Montreal, and I got it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Forget about Peoria. I'm just gonna do this because if
Mhm.
I don't sign up and I don't get into Peoria, I'm gonna be sad. So
Mhm.
that was that decision, and then at that point, I was like, okay, how do I spend my money like in an economical way throughout this whole trip? Because the most expensive was the ticket. It cost me like $600
For
for
both
the
for
ticket.
round trip, yeah.
Round trip, yeah,
Okay.
altogether it was $600 alone. So my plan was like, okay, well, I need transit and I need a place to stay. Why don't I get a rental car and then sleep in the car? Oh, that's so
What?
brilliant. Let's do that. Yeah, yeah. I was like, and I'm gonna save money, so I'm gonna get an electric car because I'm so smart, right? I found the cheapest electric car, which was like a Nissan Leaf. Like I found that on Turo, which is like kind of like a what is Turo like? It's like an Airbnb but for
Mhm.
cars, right? So I get my Turo. See, I'm telling you my whole story
No, this
now.
is great.
Okay, so I go to Montreal, dude. I'm in an unknown place. Don't know the like. Everybody's talking in French because it's like
Mhm.
primarily French. They
Mhm.
and then like side note, we kind of know English. So like everybody's talking in French. I'm lost. It's just me. I get out of the airport and the dude, thankfully the Turo guy that I'm talking to, he knows English. So I was just telling him like, hey, I'm gonna be outside in like 5 minutes. He's like, okay, cool. So we meet up and I see this car, dude. It is so beat up. Like it was the worst. It was the worst freaking electric vehicle I've ever seen in my
Okay.
life. Like it was like dented on the side. The
Mhm.
left light was cracked. Like
Okay.
it was like taped up with like red tape, and like there was this giant line indentation that's like running from like the driver's side door all the way to like the trunk. Like somebody was like
Okay.
dragging the car on its side. It was bad. And then the guy was like, "Oh yeah, you're Josh." And like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice to meet you." And he was like, "Oh yeah, so this is gonna be your car. Sorry about the mess, blah blah blah, yada yada." I'm like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." But I only paid. It was really cheap. It was like
Yeah.
$30 a day, which I
Okay.
should have known at that time. Like, okay, this is sus. Like, you're
Yeah.
paying at $30 a day for an e-vehicle.
Mhm.
So he gave me the car and he was like, "Oh yeah, your left signal doesn't work. So you need to do hand
Yeah, oh
signals."
my god.
I
Okay.
was like, "Oh my god!" And he was like, "I recommend not using the heater because you're gonna drain the battery." I'm like, "Oh my
Oh
god,
my
dude!
god.
I'm in Canada. I'm like up north. It's
It's
freezing up
freezing.
here. You're like, you don't want to, and I'm gonna sleep in this car." So in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna turn it on. I don't care. I'm just gonna plug the car in while it's charging,
Mhm.
and then just like heat up or whatever. So go through that whole thing. I got to Canada. The tournament was on
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday. I got there like Thursday night,
Thursday night.
right?
Okay.
And then Thursday night, I just ate some food or whatever. My plan was just to charge the car, like sleep in the car while it's charging, and then during the daytime, like, sightsee or whatever. Because then I have Thursday and,
Mhm.
or no, I have Friday to like kind of do whatever.
Mhm.
And then that night, I'm like trying to find a charger, and this car isn't charging in any of the chargers. I was like, what the hell is
Oh.
wrong with this car? It's like really messed up. So eventually, one of the places that I tried out, and this is like, it's like 2 a.m. already, and I'm still looking for a charger, and the battery is at like
Yeah.
50%, so I want it to be full, right? and I found this hill. There was nobody on this hill, dude. It was like on this the only building up this hill.
Mm-hmm.
It like overlooks a park,
Okay.
or like the city. There's like a little park there, and right next to the park is like a U-Haul building. There's nothing up there. I'm like, oh, this is super safe, right? And I had the car parked, and I had it plugged in, which I was still trying to figure out the charger at the time. It wasn't charging, and I'm just trying to get some sleep at that point. I'm like exhausted. I'm sleeping, and then literally at like 3 a.m., right? I see the lights come on in my car.
Oh,
And then I
okay.
hear my door like creaking open, dude. It's like pitch black outside, the only lights in my car. I can't see shit. And I look over and I was like, "Hello?" And then outside I just see this figure, like a black figure. They
Okay.
they open the door and they like peek their head in like really quick. And
Oh
it's
my
this like
god.
old haggard woman. She got like long straggly gray hair. She got like a wart, like it was like yeah, her face was like bleeding. Like her
Okay.
pimples, she had like pimples or like
Okay.
warts and they're like
Yeah.
popped and they're
Seems
like
like
bleeding. She was
drugs.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, she just popped in. She's like, "You got any food?" And like she's looking at my bag of McDonald's that I ate from that night that was like filled with trash. And I was like, "No, I don't have any food." Like, and she's like, "Well, do you have any money?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have any money." And then she just like slammed the car door and she started trotting away. I was like, "Holy shit, what just happened, dude?" I almost died. Like in that moment when she opened the door, I was
Hmm.
like,
There wasn't like a
"I'm
lock
dead."
mechanism, or just that car was
Oh,
so
okay.
bad.
That was my bad. Like the
Okay.
car wouldn't charge. So I'm in and out of the car trying to check the meter
Yeah.
to see if it's like charging.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally knocked out,
You forgot to
the
lock the
car
door.
was unlocked.
Yeah. Okay.
So after that night, dude. Oh, and then so after that, I unplugged everything. I was like, "Fuck this! I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't know what's gonna happen tonight." I'm driving down the hill, and this lady just like she like jumps in front of my car, like try to stop my
Yeah.
car. I'm like, and then like I had to like swerve around her. This woman was, I don't know, she was on something. She was
No,
crazy.
no, yeah, it sounds
And
like drugs. Drugs is one hell of a drugs.
yeah,
Yeah.
drugs is a powerful thing. So I managed to charge the car. I just ended up at like I charged the car from like 3 to 4. I didn't get any sleep, and then from 4, I parked in front of like this huge like plaza
Mm-hmm.
that has a card shop there, and I only knew because I was like looking shops up on the Bandai app. I was like, okay, so my day to day, I'm gonna walk around, hang out, or whatever, and then at this card shop later tonight, I'm gonna play, like
Okay.
check out the local meta or whatever. And then after that night, though, after I parked there, I'm like, you know what? This is not working out. I don't care anymore. I need somewhere to
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
So I did get a B&B, and then
Okay.
um, it's a whole nother story with that one. Like the
Okay.
B&B I think it was haunted.
You think it
I'm
was
not gonna
haunted?
lie. I think it was haunted. Yes.
You had a scary experience.
Yeah,
The one
dude.
of those,
It
one
was
of
like
those. Oh,
in
I
this.
wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for this.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, man. Like it was a whole adventure for sure. But
Yeah.
would I do it again? Hell yeah, I would. It was a fun time, and we got to play
Yeah.
One Piece,
Yeah.
and
No, the,
eventually, obviously,
no,
the
the
top.
tournament itself. What was it's paper registration, right? Like a paper deck, or
Yeah, so that one, they made us. Actually, it was a lot simpler than that. They
Mhm.
just let us take a picture. No, it
What?
wasn't that simple.
That's hype.
We took a no, no, no. It was more complicated than that. So we took a picture of the deck, and then
Hmm.
they made us like go on like this I do a deck builder online and like send
Oh.
that over to them.
Oh, that is worse. That's so much worse.
Yeah,
What
it's
what
actually
I'm gonna
pretty
do
hard.
as well, I'm gonna show your deck list on this on my monitor. Okay. Right?
Oh,
We'll go
there
over
you
that
go.
later, but I'm just gonna show this on my end so they'll see that. Okay.
Is this
Um
something your audience is gonna see?
yeah, well you might see it right now for you, yeah. But they'll see this. They'll see your deck
Oh,
list
okay.
right here. If that's okay, sir, that your deck list is
Oh,
out there.
definitely. I don't know. I don't have my cards with me at this
Perfect.
moment, so
I have cards right here. Don't worry. You see these cards, right?
perfect.
On here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, we'll go into the deck list later. But when you got to the venue, you're looking at stuff. When you have your first round opponent, Can you tell me what you're thinking? Let's say like what you're thinking around you, what's going on. Just focus on your matchup.
Yeah,
Did you get enough food in you? Did you have to use the bathroom all the time? Like what's going on?
dude, it was I definitely it was a hectic day, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like the day before I played at the locals
Mm-hmm.
at the shop in Montreal and met a group of like the coolest people. I swear to God, dude, like if you're ever in Montreal, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Nicest people I've ever met. These people at their locals like invited me to grab breakfast with them the next day. I'm like, what
Mm-hmm.
happens in LA? Like people don't care about you in LA. Anyway, so I still didn't know what deck I actually wanted to play
You're
all the
kidding.
way down to like it was like 6 a.m. and I'm like, do I play Ivankov or do I play Dofi? I don't know what to do. Like I'm so confused. Like Ivankov is so fun. I enjoyed it and I was grinding it since like the beginning of OPO2 and I like
Mm-hmm.
got really good with it. But I also know Dofi's good against like the current environment. So I'm like, fuck, do I play the deck I enjoy or
Mm-hmm.
do I play the deck that will win?
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty much registration was at 9. It was already at like it was like 8 o'clock. I'm like, okay, let's just do Dofi. Screw it. Just Dofi, throw it into the wind, hope for the best. So
Mm-hmm.
I played Dofi going into that event. I hadn't eaten anything like from the like night before.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like hungry, but I'm not sure if this works for you, but for me, anytime I go to like a large event, if I go hungry, I actually play better. It's
Really?
like my mind is like in like fight or
Mm-hmm.
flight mode and I'm like hyper
Yeah,
focused, you know?
my objective is set myself up so I don't have to go poop all
Oh
day.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is
poop during the
problematic.
tournament. That's so it's like I have a good dinner, I use the restroom in the morning, I'll have a light breakfast and I'll have a light snacks throughout the day, and then I'll be starving when I'm done. I'll go get some food, right?
Dude, that's a pro tip right there. Don't ever shit in a big convention like that
Yeah.
because the photos are
It
never
could be
good.
worse like in LA or something, you know. I went to LA one
Oh yeah.
time, or Anaheim, right? For one
Oh
thing, and
dude.
like they're like you're in the toilet and they're changing the toilet paper right there. You can see the worker. You're like, what the heck is going on? It's like less privacy. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
Life
LA
pro
is a
tip.
different breed, bro.
Life pro tip. Stop pooping when you go to events. Okay, just that's.
Hey, we could put our tips together. It helps when you don't eat because you don't
We
poop
put
when you
our
don't eat.
tips
There you
together.
go.
Oh my god, that's funny.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, I'm really like
Okay.
one thing you guys need to know about me, and you'll see this in my vlogs. I literally have like the worst short-term memory. Like a thing will happen, and then like 5 minutes after that, I'm like, wait, what was the thing that happened?
Hmm.
Like I'm kind of forgetful. So I'm sorry if I can't recall my exact like my
Hmm.
rounds going into that tournament. It was kind of a blur, man. It was a long day. We played
Okay.
like 9 rounds, and
Yeah.
all I remember going into that event was actually my first game I played a Luffy deck
Hmm.
and I won that and then from there on out like I
Hmm.
won all of my games
Which
and then
game did
I
you lose? Then you probably remember
the
that
games
one.
I lost was round 6
Hmm.
and I believe the last round I lost and
Yeah.
I went X and 2. No, I think I just lost round
Yeah.
6 actually.
You only had one round loss if you were third.
Yeah,
In
I only had 1 round loss, and it was on my 6th round. It was this guy. I guess he's, like, known. I don't
What
know
did
the
he
guy,
play?
but, like, he was playing, Kinemon. He was, like, Asian ethnicity.
Wow. Narrowed it down
Um
there.
Yep, there you go, guys. Hope that made that simple. No, he's no I don't know. Point being, he's known, he's a good player,
Okay.
right? That was my
Yeah,
only point. Yeah.
maybe he like. Do you know where he came from at all? Like if he traveled from like Miami or something, or
From what I hear, he travels a lot, so I'm guessing he's probably one of the East Coast guys.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a guy. I think he won Miami, and he probably goes around to all of them, right? That's my only thought process. And
Yeah.
I
Well,
to throw this in a second thing, I had two guys, him and his son, they both went, and I think Jonathan Job, he got top 16. I think it was Whitebeard, I believe, and I think he lost like a Jet Pistol Luffy or something like that. Like yeah,
ooh.
in top 16, like game best of. I didn't hear exactly what happened, right?
This is Montreal?
Yeah, it's Montreal. Yeah, this isn't.
Oh, yeah, I remember them. I didn't watch the game, but I
Yeah.
remember them talking about it afterwards, how
Oh,
lucky
it
he
was
got.
that big. You remember? Okay, yeah. I didn't even hear anything about it. So yeah, but I just heard it was some like crazy jet pistol where that was basically what ended the game, and then, yeah, out of
I bet
life.
it's on stream somewhere.
Maybe,
Uh,
I don't know. At the time, I was watching that and the other stream, right? And
Peoria?
there was a lot of Doflamingo in there, and on both, right? There's a lot in Peoria, a lot of Doflamingo.
Dude, I was the only top 16,
Mhm.
DOfi
Yeah, and
Montreal,
I
but I
don't
know
know.
Peoria had a lot,
It had
bro.
no. I remember at one point they're like, oh, there were like 5 or 6 undefeated Dofis in like round 6, and like that's nuts,
Jeez,
And
that
so,
is
and eventually there
crazy.
was none, right? But and there was 3,
Unfortunately.
and all of them have like a different build, right? Especially the guy who got third, fourth. His build's different. I'd always talk with John, be like, yeah, every build we would say, oh, this card's interesting at the very least. I would maybe say a card's bad or an idea's bad, right? But I'm like, oh, this is actually interesting. I could see it being used for this, but it's still Doflamingo, right? So regardless of that,
Exactly.
it's still Doflamingo, and they got third, fourth. So
Dude, I'm really convinced in that with the way the lists are looking like, it really is a reflection of the player and the way they play the game.
okay,
That's why my list is the way it is. And
yeah.
we can go into that if you want to.
Sure. Let's go into
Um,
top cut games, and then we'll go into the list. So
okay.
you probably remember the top cut.
Yeah.
So you're already telling me you already kind of skipped over the story a little bit. Quick. You faced a law
With the
player.
law
It
player.
was 52 minutes. Game 2. It went to degenerate BS. Where did he get penalized for that game because he put 5 life
Yeah,
out?
so the end of that game basically, the judge basically told him like, since you put out an extra life at the beginning of the game, there's no way for us to reverse this game state.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we have no choice but to give you the game loss. But by the end of that,
Mm,
we only had 8 minutes, and
yeah.
the
Even if
odds
you
were really
lose
against us.
that game, he loses. By the way, I believe.
Yeah, so
So
I already won game one, so because he got that game loss, that was the
yeah,
end of
you
that
could have
game.
just waited 8 minutes and then forfeited, and then you win,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
by the rules, right? Um,
exactly. If that game went to time without a
mhm,
winner, I would win the whole
yeah,
match.
and then also that comes down to 2 things. I don't know your play speed, right, at all, right? But I think playing fast or playing at a good pace for this game, and also telling your opponent to, right, is very important. And also the deck you choose is important as well. If you play a deck that takes too long and you're also a slow player, you're probably going to lose on time at some point
Yeah,
in your career. So
for
and
sure.
that probably affected that a little bit, right? So
So the way that game went, we were both like we weren't like playing fast.
mhm,
I could tell you that much. We were playing like on a in a regular pace, but the
mhm,
game just dragged on so long
mhm.
because I wasn't
It'll do
going
that.
for life. I was focusing on clearing his board,
Makes
and
sense.
he kept building board. So
Makes
it was
sense.
just build board, clear board, and then just literally took 52 minutes.
Mhm.
And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it is so important for you to like play the pace correctly. Like one of the benefits I would say of One Piece in general is that it's best of one game. So it's unlike
Mhm.
Yu-Gi-Oh, where you play like best two out of three. The game is over in just one, and they give you a good amount of time, I would say, like 35 minutes, right?
Mhm.
30, 35 to finish one game, which is reasonable.
Online, they gave
But
you
that
40. They give you 40 minutes and the
40.
minutes. That give you way too much time
Oh, so
online.
yeah, 40
Yeah.
minutes to finish one game is like you have enough time. You should not go
Mhm.
into time. I think they do that because they don't want people like calling the judge and all that. Anyways,
Mhm.
yeah, pacing is so important, and there will be times where you're playing in a for first place or whatever, and people are
Mhm.
gonna call the judge on you if you're going too slow, and you
Yeah.
could get a game
I
loss.
think it's all relative, like if it's like your second or third turn, right? And it's not a very impactful decision, it shouldn't be that long because it's just you knowing how to play your deck, right? But if
Yeah,
it's like the game's gonna end in 2 turns from now, right? Then it's okay to think about it for 5 minutes, right?
yeah,
So yeah.
agree.
How was your top 8 game? What was that?
Top eight, I actually played Zoro.
Okay.
And you know, I've been playing Dofi since OPO1. I'm
Mhm.
pretty comfortable against red in general.
Mhm.
So I was like pretty glad actually that
I would be.
I wasn't playing like a bad matchup,
I would
right? I
be,
was playing
yeah.
Zoro. Yeah, and then my opponent, I am so sorry I forgot your name. Terrible with names. But he played it well. He played it really well, but I was still a higher seed than him, and I got to pick myself to
Mhm.
go first. And that's really one of the most important things in my opinion, like going up against that matchup is
Mhm.
getting that first turn, because
Sure.
what you're taking away is their, you know, the aggro. Like a lot of the initial aggro that
Mhm.
Zoro makes Zoro so scary is because they go first. So
Mhm.
it allowed me to set up board before he got to swing.
Yeah.
And you know, by the end of it, I ended up winning games 1 and 2. We actually didn't go to game 3.
Mhm. Did he choose to go first game 2?
He did,
Yeah.
but
I gotta say one thing, a side note with Doflamingo, it definitely does not feel bad going second. It just I think it curves out better going first because of Mihawk. That's the
yeah, no,
main
I
reason.
agree with you. Dofi, I just how I played the deck, I like to go first.
Mhm.
It's just something I use. Maybe I get it from OPO1, but going second is not bad at all. It gives you more time to draw into Perona. And
Mhm.
if you're able to actually play Perona on your 4 Dawn turn, you're able to see more cards out, right?
Mhm.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and even going second, a lot of times, just thinking about going second, right? It actually makes your deck more consistent. You get 2 draws, right? Because you'll draw for turn 1 and turn 2, and usually take a damage. So you get 3 more cards to look at in case
Yeah,
you did not draw a Perona or a 1-cost Doflamingo, right? So,
exactly.
um, I think that's important, right? And a lot of decks like to go second now. So if you can stop them from going second, it's actually not a bad idea. And I think there is a merit. But John Ashby just told me just go first. Like no matter what, go first. It's just better, right? But
Yeah.
I can only think of one matchup while playing against black. I'll choose to go second. Because I don't like
Black.
playing against black. So
I don't care either or against black. I think black is such a like it's a favorable matchup
mhm,
for Dofi that as long as you're able to see
mhm,
Perona and you're constantly building a board for free every turn with your
mhm.
ability, they're gonna
Yeah.
run out of gas to like kill your
I
resources.
found one particular game I played against black is a friend who played a lot of black. The main downside of black I see is that it's inconsistent, right? But if they
Mhm.
curve out this way, it makes it almost impossible. And basically, all he did was he swung into every character I had, right?
Mhm.
And he was able to get 2 4-cost Kuzons out, right? And so when you get 2 of those out, when I place my Mihawk, when he taxes that 4-cost Kuzon, he then plays his 10-cost Kuzon, and my Mihawk's gone, right? And from then on, like my Mihawk gameplay is absolutely destroyed. And I
Yeah,
felt they just built a big board and then just destroyed me. So I'm like, okay, I actually have to go wide against black, right? So
yeah,
maybe it's
you
that one
do.
experience, but most of the time black is fairly inconsistent just because of that. And if you have them go second, they get they draw 1 card for both for their first turn, right? And going second, they also so they'll draw a card and then they have more chance to see their 4-cost Kuzon, essentially, right? They can see 2 4-cost Kuzons. I'm like shitting myself, essentially,
Dude,
right?
I just went to a locals tournament
Mm-hmm.
where I played against a black deck. He got to go first. I made him go first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he goes, I think her name's Sasaki. At 3 Dawn, he
Okay.
played this card that costs 3. She can like double swing. She's like a
Yeah.
pseudo Basil.
Yeah. And it has to kill the card. It has to kill the card.
Holy shit, that card is so good. It
Mm-hmm.
killed like 4 of my warlords because he
Yeah.
would load her up
Mm-hmm.
and just double swing every turn. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my
When they
god, this
play
card
that
is so
card,
stupid.
I don't use Doflamingo skill. I keep everything standing and only swing with leader. And then that makes them, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, what do I do with this card? I don't know what to do.
Well,
So,
I'm like, okay, so if you're really trying to kill this card, you gotta commit all your Dawn. And that's what he would
mm-hmm,
do. He would just like waste his whole turn to like do the double swing.
mm-hmm.
So I think the result was he did gain advantage from it, but he wasn't able to develop a bigger board. But
Yeah.
he did get double 10 drop Kuzan on me, which
Mm-hmm.
is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yes, at that point, you're not playing any top ends. So I went wide and just like,
Yeah, your Perona's
yeah.
a good attacker at that point, you know. So
Yeah.
so I hear you. So you played against Zoro. You beat them, destroyed them. No, you beat them. You 2-0'd. So Zoro is a favorable matchup. They have to play
Yeah.
really well to get out of that matchup. I find if you're playing well, you know.
Well, so that's kind of where it gets weird for me, because after that game,
Mm-hmm.
the next game was on stream, and like
Mm-hmm.
at this point, like everybody was cheering me on, right? I'm like
Mm-hmm.
the only blue player.
Mm-hmm.
It's all red. If you guys look at the list
Oh yeah.
for Montreal, I believe like it's like 6 out of the no, like
It's a lot.
it's a
What
lot.
it's even worse
Anyways,
in Montreal than it was Peoria. Yeah, especially
oh
Zoro.
yeah,
Zoro is a big
Mont-
thing. So
oh,
yeah,
like apparently. So
yeah.
everybody was like cheering me on. It was on stream again, and I go up against another Zoro player. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, another one. I got this. This is so easy. And then they
Mm-hmm.
were fourth seed, and I was third seed. So I
Mm-hmm.
got to pick order again.
Oh.
And I chose to go first. We play it out, and I draw my first opening hand was like super shitty. I drew
Mm-hmm.
like double Mihawk, Pacifista, a
Yeah.
law blocker, and like a freaking warlord. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, this is not keepable. So I mull, and then I
Your
mull,
worst hand, right?
and then I draw triple Mihawk. I was like, oh
And it's a
my
9
god,
cost,
this hand
right?
is terrible. No,
Yeah.
I didn't have any searcher. I believe, like you guys can watch the game, but it
Mm-hmm.
was really bad. My and
Yeah.
then long story short, that first game went pretty quick. And
Okay.
then after I lost that game, I'm like, okay, let's it's all good. Let's go first. Like, bring it back. We got this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played it out, and he just got it, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no excuses. Well, no, I think I whiffed actually twice in that game too.
You
And
whiffed like you had a
I kind
bottom
of like
deck, or you just saw something. You saw top
I
5
had to
cards,
go
but they.
blind.
Oh, you had to
Like
swing blind. Okay.
I had to like swing blind with Dofi ability, and I like
Mm.
missed it like
Mm-hmm.
twice. And then he just got a bigger he drew all of his control pieces, and he was able to clear my board because I didn't really develop a large board.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, like he just got it, you
Yeah.
know.
I get it.
And he ended up actually winning the whole entire tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel too bad.
Mm-hmm.
He was a local in Montreal, and
Yeah.
he was a really
And,
really nice
yeah, and
guy.
you're
So I'm
already on
like,
a high going top 8, right? And then top
congrats.
4. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. It was super stressful. I was so like, what, being at top 4, I was literally like so nervous. I went past the nervousness. I went like
Mm-hmm.
full circle, and I was like, wait, I'm good. Okay, I think I'm
Yeah.
good, guys. Like, I feel good about this. It
Mm-hmm.
was very, very interesting experience.
Okay.
But yeah, he I think he ended up playing Whitebeard by the end of that, and then
Mm,
he beat the Whitebeard player.
yeah.
So congrats to him.
Pretty good. Yeah, I
Really
think
well played.
Zoro's very good too of a deck. I think more people should play Zoro. It definitely keeps decks like black in check, right? Less you see less Z or black, right?
Yeah,
Or even actually how is the Ivankov's matchup into Zoro? Is it like the similar or is
against
it
Dofy.
yeah, no, Ivankov's matchup. No. I know how that goes. Ivankov's matchup into Zoro.
Ivankov has a pretty good matchup actually against
Okay.
Zoro, unless
Yeah.
they have like a really
Yeah.
nutty hand where they
Uh,
can go tall.
yeah.
Because Ivankov, he doesn't care about your opponent going wide, because they're gonna
Mm,
discard cards all day and refresh anyway.
mm.
But when they go tall, it makes it really hard for that deck to counter out of.
Okay. My
Yeah,
my
so it's actually pretty
experience with
favorable.
Ivankov too.
Mm.
I never touched Ivankov by the way playing it, right?
Oh yeah.
I got in the Saturday tournament before I went 10th, the day before, I got rolled by an Ivankov. Like it was like I'm like this deck is not fun to play against. This is so hard. Like I almost switched to that deck thinking, "Dang, dude, if I've ever seen the board where you just get like 2 blockers out. I think it's Mr. 3, right? 2 Mr. 3s, a
Yeah.
Luffy and an Ivankov. Like
Trigaldino.
you're just like laughing, right, at your opponent. There's nothing your opponent could do.
Dude, Ivankov is OPO2's high roll deck. That deck, when it works, is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you can go like 7 Dawn, drop 2 7k bodies, and then on your 9 Dawn, drop 2 7k bodies. And it's like at that point your opponent's like,
yeah.
what do I do?
And if I
You
have to see Mihawks against that, and hopefully I get to go first. That's basically it. That's
especially
that's
against
my
like Dofy. Dude,
yeah, it's good against Dofi.
It's hard, man. When you're playing Dofi against Ivankov,
Your Kuma's just useless. Like your Kuma's useless.
Yeah.
They'll bounce anything back to your hand, and you're like, wow, well, that wasted a turn for me. Thanks, appreciate it.
you just gotta hope that one of two things happen. They don't see the Luffy, or you're a better player and you play out of it somehow.
Yeah, I think most of the time, and that's why I play 4 Mihawk now. I played 3 Mihawk when I did my tournament, right? That now I play 4 Mihawk because there's a lot of blue around, right? So that's why I switched my deck around, because it literally, I think I've designed it down to a science, whoever draws the most Mihawks. So, but let's go into your deck list at the time, right? I think you change your deck list, right, with your videos you've been posting, right, and maybe ideas, but I did like some things about this, and I questioned one thing about it, but I'm like, you know what, I had the same idea at some point, so I don't think it's anything too crazy. But I had coaching from John the week before, right? I had a coaching with him, and so we went through a lot of things, and one thing was love mellow, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing here. There is no love mellow, and I used to only run 2 as well, right? Because other decks in OPO 1, you ran 2, right? Other decks at top ran 2, so I thought, oh, I'll run that too, because that's just what it is. But I had a different mentality. I actually want to see love mellow like on my 5 Dawn turn, right? Because a lot of times I get like a Boa Hancock out, and a love to that 2 extra Dawn, like they can't kill your Boa. There's no chance they kill your Boa. So
yeah, so I mean, my opinion on love mellow is that it's an amazing card.
Yeah.
Right? It's probably one of the best like blue events that exist in the game at the moment, and it will continue to be played in blue decks for the most until the cycle, like a better love mellow comes out in the future, right? So I think that card is great, but the problem is when you're playing Dofi, you're already committing 3 Dawn every turn to use your leader ability. You really won't have much time availability to play love mellow past like your 5th Dawn turn, and then like after that it's like your 10 Dawn turn, right? Because
if you don't play a Mihawk,
right, your curve is so good in Dofi, there's always stuff to do. And the way I play my deck is I'm very aggressive with like clearing board and using my Dawn to like deal damage. I never have free Dawn, and that's why I chose to maximize on like running more 2k counters than running love mellow.
You never play him on the field, right, Mr. 2? He's just a 2k counter, or did he actually
I never played him in the field. He's just a 2k counter.
Yeah, I mean,
and I used him over the other 2k that cost 3 because it's shiny. And
he is a rare. That is right. So I was doing something like this, like 2, I think, just as an extra 2k counters, because I just want to see more of those. But I just kind of talked myself into just doing love mellow because of this other play, right? But I could see, because it's free, it doesn't cost you any Dawn to use a 2k counter, right? So and love mellow can put you in a bad spot sometimes, especially if you see way too many of them. So
and you know, my current list actually I cut the 1 cost Dofi, and I am running 2 love mellow. So
I find love mellow does very well against Whitebeard. I think that's why I chose it in mine. But if you were facing more things like Zoro, love mellow. Why do I need 4k counter for a 5k swing, right? So
exactly.
So I get that.
Also, the deck innately, well, at least I want to say innately, just with the package that Dofi has available to it, it's just a solid deck against Whitebeard. If you go first, you're like you're in a really good place to win. Like, it's almost guaranteed that having the mellow is the icing on top, but it's not necessary for you to have a winning matchup in
Sometimes
this.
it's like when sometimes Love Mellow is a win harder card, right? Or it's the nail in the coffin
Yeah.
at the very least. Maybe not a win harder, but it's a nail in the
Yeah.
coffin where your opponent just looks at their hand and looks at you, and you have 2 Dawn open. They go, well, I guess I scoop. I've had no Love Mellow in my hand, by the way, and 2 Dawn active, and they've scooped before because they're like, there's just no possible way they can win this game.
I can't tell you how many times I did that during the tournament.
Really?
I would just leave 2 Dawn up and pass, and it makes people play a certain way, right? They're gonna either swing at you for 9k or higher, or they're gonna swing exact because they're assuming that you have a love. So it's a great way for you to kind of manipulate what your opponent does.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. So let's see, you ran 3 Blocker Law, 4 Perona. I want to talk about this card, 2 Don Quixote Doflamingo, 1 cost. You say you cut this now, right? Why did you cut this?
yeah. So my reasoning at the time of running 2 of those, I had 2 flex spots,
Sure.
and I was like, I gotta, either I run an extra 2k counter, an extra Mihawk, 2 Love Mellows, or like just throw in the 2 Dofis. And I was scared that going into a 9 round event that I wasn't not gonna see my searchers, like my Perona and my 3 cost Dofi. So I was like, let's just throw the 2 1 cost and make him like my pseudo Perona. And when I played it out through the tournament, and the other reason was I was kind of expecting a lot of red, and then Law obviously still a menace. I'm like, okay, this guy is pretty good against that. So I did that, and I think there was only 1 round in that tournament where that card was actually valuable, and it was on a game where I didn't see Perona or Dofi, and I drew that card.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is great. Keepable hand.
It helps you with your best of ones, right? Because it's more consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But overwhelmingly, every other game where I would get that card, it's literally sitting in my hand till the end of game. It never gets played. It's not a counter. It was just like a waste. And then I played it actually in Top Cut, and when I used his ability, it just seemed subpar. It didn't really because I was losing advantage. I was losing counter power to up a 1 cost that I was gonna swing into anyway. So it's like, okay, you swung with your 5k, and I'm gonna use the counter that I would have discarded to bottom deck at the turn prior with the 1 cost Dofi, and I'm just gonna kill it. So it's kind of like same result,
I'll tell you what I think about this card. The more I play this card, the more I see it, the better it gets. To be honest,
really,
because I was talking with John. He was thinking about running 4 of these, right? 4.
Wow.
And my reasoning for running 3 but my first reason for running 3 is it makes the deck more consistent. There's like an actual number based off of like percentage to see Perona or Don Quixote Doflamingo, right? When you add these 2 cards, it goes up like 20%. So I added 3. It was like insane, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I want to make it more consistent to see, right? And I'm facing red. And my biggest excuse for playing it is that I could just discard a copy of itself for its skill. That was literally my excuse. I could just discard the same copy of it. That sounds kind of redundant. And sometimes it's just a body there that your opponent has to force to deal with. And I find that it's not just red, it's green. It actually eats green up because they're Tokis and they're beiges. They can't do anything about that, right? They're forced to kill this card right when you place it. And if they
gotta waste like a
and if you play another one, they're screwed, right? Yeah.
I mean, if you put it in that light, I definitely agree with you. It's not a terrible card.
It's not.
And I may actually try it again sometime in the future. That flex spot for 2 though right now for me is highly contested with other good cards, which is why I'm like really struggling.
Yeah. At locals, this card sometimes just sits in my hand and does nothing. So but like but sometimes big tournaments are like gets green or red. But like usually it's like, oh, my last life, I see this card. I'm like, oh, great, this is what I needed.
Dude, it kept happening to me throughout the tournament. Yeah. I would like get live Mihawk, live Dofi. I'm like,
oh my gosh, getting a Mihawk, night cost Mihawk out of life is like the worst feeling in the planet. So, Yeah, and then let's see here. Everything else seems pretty standard. I don't know if you like agree with playing 4 Pacifista anymore. I play 4. You play 3. I play 4. And that's just
I
because consistency.
I
So.
love that. I love 4. I mean, I have respect for people that run 4 Pacifista. I don't
Mhm.
think there's anything wrong with it.
Mhm.
I think it's great. It's just, there's always gonna be the time where you like see too many pacifistas and not one Kuma.
Mhm.
And for me, like I just cut it down to 3 because
Mhm.
it seemed like a good number without
Yeah.
risking that,
My thing is, I'm overthinking it. I'm like, I'll just throw one Gecko Moria over to the Pacifista. That was
See,
my.
for me, dude, the 6K Moria
Mhm.
is so good.
It's very
Imagine
good
playing
if
that
you can
on your
run
3
4.
dawn
Yeah,
turn.
it's very good if you can see a Perona into Gecko Moria, but it's hard for me to see that all the time, especially
Also,
with
it's
yeah.
it's solid against Whitebeard. It's
Mhm.
actually like a threat without committing any sort of dawn.
Mhm.
And against other decks, the 6K body is it's difficult for an opponent to remove because
Yeah.
in a 5K body they have to commit 3 dawn to reliably kill a 6K body, which is
Mhm.
for a lot of decks it's a big commitment.
Yeah, it's easier to guard, that's for sure, right? But
Yeah,
that sometimes you have to
exactly.
play a 4 cost vanilla from hand. That was my thought process. That's why I'm like, well, sometimes I've played pacifistas from hand, like hard cost. So I do the same thing with Gecko Moria too. That was my reasoning. But you're right,
Yeah,
it is
I
very
never
polarizing to play it on the third dawn turn. So
definitely. I rarely play the Gecko Moria from hand unless I'm
mhm.
like I'm playing
Y-
Whitebeard or
you
something.
have to be in a bad situation. So if you don't call it
Yeah,
off top of the deck, it's just another card, right? It's just a
it's
one K
just a
counter.
counter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
is your
My favorite play
experience
is
with
still
Treasure Cup Jinbei?
what's that? Oh, the Jinbei.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. I think it's an amazing card going into red. It's an amazing card going into green,
Hmm.
red green, like black even. There's so many matchups where that Jinbei turns into like a card where they're screwed if they do, they're screwed if they don't.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're worse screwed if they
Yeah.
don't,
And I'm
actually. Like
assuming before this you were playing Teach before you had Jinbeis, right? Something like
yeah,
that.
so like a mix. I think in the current environment, I don't know if 4 teach is actually like necessary, maybe like 3
Y-
and then use
Yeah.
that you know.
Well,
But
Teach is a
it
very
did work
valuable
out.
card against Okiku, essentially, right?
Yeah.
That's the one card I could think of that actually makes a problem. But the
That and
problem is
Nico.
it's a 4K body. That's the problem that gets me. It's like
Yeah.
it's already power crept, that card. you know?
If I'm gonna argue for teach, I would say, it's nice to have that combat trick to be able to like swing and bounce like a blocker.
Hmm.
That always catches people off guard. And the 4K body is just close enough to be like a relevant threat where your opponents will be still encouraged to like kill it.
Yeah.
So that would be the argument on that. But it's not to
Yeah.
say that Jinbei it's not a better card. It really is a better card compared to
Hmm.
Teach, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And I mean, every Law or Zora player will tell you this card is their menace. They don't want to see you ever play this card because they have to deal with it essentially
Yeah.
because they know they're gonna have to eventually they're gonna lose if they don't. So
Yeah. There will be players that will try to like, okay, I'll just leave it there, whatever. I'm not gonna kill it.
and
That's worse.
then it eats their board. It literally just swings
Right.
5K to
Like
their
literally
board.
every turn I'm like, okay, 7, 7, 7. Okay.
Yeah.
You're losing more than leaving it there than just, killing it. But
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
it goes back to what we talked about with like the whole mind game thing
Hmm.
where your opponent sees a card, right? And this is what another reason, like this is why I like Kuma, this is why I like a
Hmm.
Jinbei. Like cards that have on KO effects, it
Hmm.
forces your opponent to think like they're gonna let this thing die because it's meant to die. It's on KO, it gets an effect.
Hmm.
And anytime they swing into 5K into my Jinbei, I always counter unless I really need to remove a card, but
Hmm.
I almost always counter just so that I can have another
Yeah,
attacker.
it sometimes puts red in a really big situation. I had a Zoro in my game in one of my online games for this my regional one, right? I had a Kuma and a Jinbei on the field, okay, and I had a Perona. They jet pistoled the Perona because no matter what, that's what they
What?
did. It was honestly looking back, it was kind of a tilt
Dang,
situation. You can look back at that video. I did. I might have been like game 5
that's
or 6 or
funny.
something, but it was
I can't believe
absolutely. I'm
that.
like I think I've seen it all because if they do the Puma, Pacifista comes out. They do the Jinbei,
Right.
their Dan's gone. And
Oh
honestly, they
my
should have just done the
god.
Jinbei because that was it was already they only had one card on the field, was the Dan, right? But
Oh,
they
okay.
thought about it too hard and just said, I need to use this pistol now because it's not going to be useful later.
Right, screw it. I just need to kill something.
Yeah,
That is so
so
funny.
it was pretty funny. So, and also the one thing I guess you can give an argument for Teach, you can put like a card back in your hand like Perona, right? But like
Yeah, for
there's so
sure.
many little cards right now like Perona or Red, like Nami, that you'll just swing into that you need to have against Bonnie and Momonosuke, right? You need to have these cards out. If they ever place those cards and use them, you have an answer, but that's not your
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, having to waste a 5K swing on like a 1K body is it feels so bad. Like you
mhm.
could be using that for something more advantageous than like killing
Yeah, you could be
tiny
killing
little
their other
bodies.
like their 3K body or their other 5K body, right? So
Right. Or even life
yeah.
sometimes, you know?
All right, we're back. So, uh, so if you're listening to this, guys, I ran out of space on my computer, but I got that fixed right away. So, um, I guess we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. I guess there's a couple things I'd like to talk about, but I guess, congratulations on your top 4 win, right? Which is really big.
Thanks a lot, man.
Playing obviously a deck you like, right? Doflamingo.
Dude,
So,
I don't know if this is the same for you, but I have this sick obsession with trying to play decks that are not like meta relevant,
mhm.
you know, like top tier decks and like winning with it. Like it brings
Mhm.
me so much joy.
I had in Vanguard I played Spike Brothers, right? And so
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I love
so
those
and
guys.
I did really well with it too. So yeah, it ends up playing a deck
Oh.
that is somewhat relevant but not too relevant, right? Like
Yeah, it's
that's
nice to feel like the underdog and like
mhm.
winning, you know?
Yeah, and you get a lot more support too, like when you're playing that kind of thing, right? Like if
Yeah.
there's a Magellan or a Doflamingo, I'm all about it, right? And sometimes this
Hell
game's
yeah.
pretty balanced the way it is. It's just
Yeah.
easier. It's on easy mode for some of these red decks, right? That's how
Oh
I
my
see it.
god. That's why I
So
struggle to play a lot of red decks. It's just it's too linear. I like being able to,
mhm.
you know, think. I like
I
decks
s-
that make you think.
I suppose so. I think it's definitely a think before you're playing. Like because the
Mhm.
deck build is everything with Doflamingo, right? But there are certain different things. But did you change anything else up besides your deck? I know you said you put in Love Mellows. You still running only 3 Mihawks for now?
Yeah, so right now I only run 3.
Hmm.
It's never it's always like I'm always on the edge between like
Hmm.
3 and 4.
Yeah.
Like I ran 4 in OPO1 format and
Hmm.
it was great. But this format because there's so much like blitz meta is kind of
Yeah.
what our meta is like. You want to have as much counter power as
I think
possible,
you're
and like
right.
top ends like Mihawk is not relevant against Zoro or Luffy. You
It's
know, they
not.
kind of lose power.
Yeah.
That's why I just run 3, but 4 is still not out of the
Mhm.
question for me.
I find most people find it frustrating when you play a Mihawk. That's what I love about it, especially if you play more than one, in a game.
Yeah,
If you're able to, that means they've already they didn't punish you for playing one, right? Because if you
yeah,
play one, they should punish you immediately after because you have no Dawn available. You did nothing else,
right.
right? But if they weren't able to, if you can play three, I've never actually got four off in a game. I could have at a local, but he scooped after the third one. Just so he
No!
was so upset. It was so
Didn't even give me
great.
the achievement.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
rude.
I didn't get that achievement, but yeah, playing Mihawk feels so. And my meta call is that if people are playing a lot more blue, then it's
Really?
absolutely super good. Yeah, well, yeah, if people are playing a lot more. I think a lot more
Wow.
people are playing Doflamingo in
Oh,
particularly,
it's
right?
so funny, dude.
And that it's very good. I had this guy I played against the locals. He opened 3 Mihawks in his hand, he mulliganed. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, just keep it. Doesn't matter what the other 2 cards are. Just if you like, you're gonna if you
Just
play 3
survive for
Mihawks
9
this game,
done.
I'm losing. I'm losing. You know, I played 3 that game. I hard mull from Mihawk and against blue, right? And I would suggest that if you face another blue deck, look at the leader and go, okay. I have my hand's perfect. That's a Perona, has a Pacifista. Oh, I got a Mihawk here in case I need to like discard a 2K counter, you know? This is shaping up to be pretty well. You're like, wait a minute, playing against blue? I'm a hard mulliganing. I need a Mihawk. I need a 9-cost Mihawk in my hand right now.
You're gonna think I'm crazy,
Mhm.
but I actually I don't hard mull for the Mihawk against blue. And maybe it's because I have less experience playing against blue decks in my environment. I do play against blue, but it's not as heavy
No
out
one
here in
plays
LA.
blue in my locals either, but it's just
Oh, okay.
people started to because of me, right?
Because of the hype.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because and I talked to John. John, people play Doflamingo because of him as well, and so he plays against it. He goes, "Oh, yeah, whoever does the most Mihawks, that's basically
Dude,
it." Like
it's so
it's
crazy how many people like watch his channel that in my local even too. And they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
you watch Beats by Ash and blah blah blah." Blah." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah.
let's see."
It's people are dying for content, dude. People are bored. They want to
Yeah.
listen to something like this, but I mean, with that too, like what other, like you said, we were talking about podcasts earlier, right? I guess we talked about it off stream, right? Off the recording. You
Yeah.
said you've been listening to Three Swords podcast.
Is that what it's called?
I thought you
I
called it the Three Swords podcast.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like the Three Sword podcast. They I really like their banter and like the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that they talk about. They seem like really smart dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they stopped, I want to say in late February. They
Oh,
kind of just stopped making content. And I haven't
okay.
seen a new one since then, which is kind of
I thought
disappointing.
I saw something more recently. That's why I even like it's like, oh, I think
Oh,
I
really?
recognize that, but maybe I'm wrong. But
Or maybe it's something,
there's
maybe it's a
that.
different one.
Then there's Worst Generation podcast, and there's like 10 Drop now. But people are
Dang, you
dying
know
for
all the
content
podcasts.
just to listen to, right? And then mine
Yeah,
just being called Sage Talks because someone suggested me do that, you know.
Sage
Yeah,
Stocks.
so when I
That's
eventually go to
cool.
my OnlyFans, it's gonna be Sage Fox, you know. So
Sage Fox.
Sage Fox, yeah. No, it was just
Oh
funny.
God.
That was
Don't let me
just
be part of that one.
really good. Yeah. Hey, you're my first
Oh, it
guest, boy. Let's let me
Hey,
think here.
oh.
It's so
Oh yeah, no, I
funny.
see it now. Yeah, so three Swords podcast on Spotify. It looks like their last video,
Mm,
at least that they uploaded on Spotify,
yeah.
was in
My,
actually like late
yeah,
January.
mine will be starting on
Weird.
YouTube, and then I might put on like Spotify, right? It does take a bit of work that I've never actually done, so I've been like looking that at. But by
Yeah.
just a conversation, so hopefully you didn't think this was like too intimidating or anything, right?
No, not at all.
So
It's really easy to have a conversation with you, man. You're a great facilitator, and it didn't like we've been on this call for what, like a little over 2 hours. It didn't
mhm.
even feel like 2 hours. It felt like
Oh,
a few minutes. So
sweet. All right, any
great
last words?
stuff,
Any
man.
final plugs you'd like to give before you go?
I mean, not that I've already said it, but check out my YouTube channel, you guys. I'm a growing channel. I try to make like 3 videos a week. It's called Saucy Play. I was trying to get Saucy Plays, but that was already taken. So Saucy Play without the S. Check me out and hope you guys like my stuff and like and subscribe.
All right. Appreciate it. All
Cool.
right. And I guess let's just end it. And I'll end it with kind of a John Ashby vibe, right? So if it doesn't
Oh
have
God.
the goo, it's gotta go.
Oh shit. It's got to go.
All right.
See you guys later.
All
Real
right.
pleasure talking to you.